Session, our briefing session to order. The first order of business tonight will be discuss the agenda items. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight on the agenda, we have a number of proclamations. On the consent agenda, we have the minutes for the April 18th regular City Council meeting. The next item, 4B, is the resolution awarding a contract for alley reconstruction on San Juan Drive, between San Juan Drive and Madrid Drive, and that extends from Cockrell Hill Road to Madrid. That is a project that's in our CIP, funded by the Alley Reconstruction Fund CIP and the Drainage Fund CIP. And the lowest responsible bid on that project was $243,525. We do have the funds budgeted. The next item is 4C, which is a resolution to award a contract for the FY 2016 CDBG grant project. And this is for wastewater improvements on Pebble Drive easement from Steger Drive to Hill City Drive. You may recall that when we first talked with you last year about funding for CDBG, we are under a 2-year funding cycle now from Dallas County. Most of our CDBG funding goes towards salary for one code enforcement officer who works the low, moderate income areas. And then the remaining funds, we had talked with you about some potential projects. You directed staff to apply funds for the wastewater improvements on Steger Drive. This is the project now that is coming forward after we bid it, and that will, the project came in lower than the estimated cost, so we have some additional funds through CDBG and through our match. We will try to extend that project or increase the quantities of that project and do more. Dallas County would like for us to expend all of those available CDBG funds. So the lowest responsible bid on this was to King Solution Services in the amount of $105,300. And you may recall that we had $130,000 allocated for the project, so we still have some additional funds. We'll try to increase the project scope through change order.
And initiatives funded by the block grant are designated for certain areas of the city as agreed upon between us and the agency, right?
That is correct. It has to be applied to census tracts within the city that are considered to be low to moderate income areas. And so there are only specific areas that qualify for that and certain types of projects. This is a project that does qualify, and that is an area that would qualify.
And that's something I wanted to ask about, was that always in the past we've used that to, as you mentioned, to pay for a code enforcement person. And so did we not do that because we got the matching funds or the funds from Dallas County, or
no, we
what
still
was the
are.
switch?
No, we are still funding for the code enforcement officer over the 2-year period. And then the remaining funds that were allocated to us are going to this project. So we're only going to be able to do one project in that 2-year cycle, but we are funding the code enforcement officer for the 2-year period.
But he can only work in that particular area.
That particular code enforcement officer is designated for those low moderate income areas, and that's their area of responsibility.
Right, we can't get any funds for code enforcement officers.
General code enforcement officers?
No, for,
I mean,
like, you're getting some funds from Dallas County on the project. There's no.
oh, the additional funds that are available? Well, we've already allocated. We would have to go back through the process with Dallas County now, because when we submitted the application to them, the application was specific in what we were requesting the funds for. So we allocated the funds for 2 years for a code enforcement officer, and then the remaining was for this project. The estimates, the project came in a little under the estimates, and so they want us to use it, but it has to be really on this project or something in that scope.
Once you've submitted it, you can't change it.
That's correct. And that was why originally we had asked you, we had a couple of different projects that were qualifying projects for CDBG funds, and so we asked you for y'all's direction on which one you wanted to go with. This was the one you chose. So we did the work on it and it's submitted now and bid it. But yeah, to go back now and it's not that great an amount anyway that we would really be able to do any other kind of a meaningful project. So what we're gonna try to do is expand the scope of this work to use up that available funding.
Which is kind of a natural to turn the corner north of Hill City.
But our
As far-
code
as
enforcement
far as we
officers
can go.
are funded.
The one, yes ma'am, that is correct.
One, is that what you said?
Just
No.
one, just one.
Oh, you mean on this? I meant they're funded out of general fund.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm going,
No, ma'am, they're
That's
not,
the
they're not
one
working
thing
for
I
free.
hear.
They're
I
not
get a
working
regular
for
for
free.
payroll.
oh my
I could
God.
try that, but I don't think they would. Right, they're funded out.
Have you asked?
I haven't asked.
And so we have now, how many?
4 code enforcement officers.
Full-time.
4 full-time. We went from 3 to 4. So, yeah.
Good.
Okay, any further questions on the consent items?
And then, under the individual consideration, we have a resolution appointing members to the Duncanville Sister City Commission, as we discussed with you the last meeting. This is a resolution with just some blank names, or blanks in there for you to fill in and appoint members as per the requirements, stipulations of the membership under the resolution that established that commission. And those are all of the items on the agenda, other than staff reports following. And we will not meet in executive session.
Okay. All right. We're not quite ready to discuss the Wintergreen Road project, so we will dispense with the executive session tonight. My feeling is, and I'll tell you on that one, and if we have to have a short meeting, once everything gets put in place, then we can do that. And then I would like to get that put to bed before the new council comes on board, because they haven't had any of the exposure to it.
Dennis, how do you like that? He's assuming a new council's coming on.
Well, there's already one new member.
See, there'd be one new member that we know of, and that probably is it. But
Good.
I'm not speculating on anything. But I think that it would be an injustice to the new member to come on and they don't have any background or anything like that. I would rather our old the outgoing council or whatever be the deciding factor in that. So I think we'll try to set it up that way. Nobody has an objection to that. Okay. All right. Guess what? That's it.
Go
We have
eat
a brief
some.
discussion.
I think we should.
No, we're not going to have one. Yeah.
Did you eat some?
I'll try it.
I missed out.
That's right.
Oh, okay, there is one.
Councilmember Rutherford did want to have the executive session, so we
Is that why everybody? I'm just now catching up with what y'all are doing.
We're talking about eating again.
Well,
That's what you do at Christmas.
we have
Thanksgiving.
we have an item 2A on the briefing presentation. Item 2A, which is to receive presentation on proposed process for abandonment of public right of way and easements and acquisition by adjacent property owners.
Mayor and Council, we wanted to have some discussions with you, and I'll let Jackie give this presentation. She'll kind of give you the background. Basically, we've had a couple of different instances that have come up here recently where residents have asked for the city to abandon easements or right-of-way. When we started looking at it, there's a lot of different issues that come into play with abandonment of easements. And so we wanted to kind of, in looking at history, it appears that we've done it different ways in the past, and we wanted to try to kind of get onto a consistent path, and we needed some input from you on some of the different things get your direction on it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jackie, and she'll outline what we're talking about, and then the input that we need from you on the discussion.
Hello, hello.
Okay, there we go. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of the Duncanville City Council, City Manager, City Secretary, City Attorney, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here tonight to lead us in a discussion regarding the proposed process for public right-of-way and easement abandonments and acquisitions. I'm Jacqueline Colton. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works. Okay, I'd like to start out tonight with saying we don't have a current process for abandoning public right-of-ways and easements. And so in order to ensure that we fulfill the council's request, we're asking the mayor and the council's input regarding the proposed process. As you may recall, a public hearing was held before the council in October of 2015 for a zoning change. It was at 212 North Hastings Street and 112 and 114 West Jesperson Way. The plat showed that buildings on the West Jesperson Way property encroached upon the alley, and there was a discussion at that time regarding the process for abandonment of public right-of-way. In addition to that, the city recently received informal requests to abandon public right-of-way abutting properties located at 331 Cedar Creek and property on Slider Drive. And that's an exhibit showing where these properties are located. The property on West Jesperson deals with alley abandonment, and the other two deal with street abandonments. And the reason why we would have a street abandonment is a street was proposed at one point in time. However, it did not get constructed. And there is, probably no anticipated need to construct the street. So that would be a reason for the adjacent property owners requesting to acquire that property. And then the same thing with an alley. There are a lot of unimproved alleys around the city where there is no expectation that they would ever be developed. And so property owners are wondering, in certain instances, if there will be an opportunity to acquire that property. Okay, just to set a good foundation and so that we're all on the same page, when we talk about an easement, we're not talking about a fee simple property right where we own the property. It is just a right for a certain purpose, such as, we were wanting water and wastewater or drainage utility easements and that sort of thing. But the underlying property right would still remain with the original property owner. And then when we talk about public right-of-way, we're talking about property reserved for public travel, streets, sidewalks, that sort of thing. And then improved public right-of-way is where the facility was actually constructed, and then we have a definition for unimproved. And then fee simple ownership means that that's the most complete form of property ownership where the city owns the underlying property. Okay, and just so we're clear, like in the instance of the Slider property, where there is a street that did not get developed, they would approach the city, and the city would negotiate with them for the acquisition of that property, so that what that means is that the city would no longer have an interest in the property. They wouldn't be responsible for mowing. Their liability would cease for that property. Okay, get into the feedback needed from the council. Property, in order to be sold, the fair market value must be determined, and that's through an appraisal process. So, you know, there are options for acquiring an appraisal. We could look at an independent appraisal. We could look at what the Dallas Central Appraisal District has appraised the value at. And in the past, I understand that we've used one price for the whole city, you know, in order to determine the value of a property. So a question that we have is, how should the appraised value be determined? And if an independent appraisal is required, who will be required to pay those costs? Will it be the city, or will it be the person who's actually acquiring the property? And how about the other costs associated with acquiring the property, such as survey fees, you know, filing, court filing fees, Dallas County filing fees, and that sort of thing. Hopefully we don't have to go to court, you know, with any of this. So we were needing, you know, the city council's input regarding, you know, these items.
Well, I think we ought to use an independent person. Obviously, Dallas County is crazy. I don't know if you've gotten your appraisals, but
Got one today.
they're crazy. 27,000. It's gone up.
Well, one thing that, you know, to consider too is there's a cost for an independent appraisal. And for an appraiser to come in, they are doing then an evaluation of that property versus surrounding properties and looking at other things, but you're going to pay for that. And so in some cases that may make a lot of sense if it's a large piece of property or it's a unique property, but if it's like an alleyway or something, do we want to spend that money? Or if you do, does the city pay for that appraisal, or does that requestor, the requesting citizen, pay for that? Which, you know, so that's something, that's what we're kind of asking.
With the person that is requesting it, if they're going to pay for it, I think that they would probably want to determine who they used for their appraisal.
Right.
So
If you tell them, but that would be a requirement, we would either have to tell them, you know, if we're going to use the DCAD price per square foot, then no, you don't have to hire someone to do that. It's a simple number you're using. But if you want to use an independent appraiser in this process, then it probably makes sense to have that requesting citizen needs to be the one to pay for that, since they're the one requesting to abandon.
There are a couple of issues that I think need to be addressed. One is that there's a property where there's an alley abatement, and I know the staff's aware of it. It's an alley abatement, and there's some claim by the owner that it was originally theirs, has always been there, and then all of a sudden just one day it showed up not being theirs, and so there's that claim. And the city never did anything with it. And then, so that's one issue. And the other issue is that there are some unimproved alleys that the city does not use anymore for garbage pickup. And when they were using it, the trucks were going down through mud and dirt. And that's been, I don't know, 20, 30 years since they've been used. So my feeling is that we need to get that to the landowners as easily as we can, and if we're going to have them pay for it, it's not going to be easy. So I want it to be easy. But because they're maintaining those alleys, they're mowing them, and they're doing what the city should be doing, frankly. They're taking care of those alleys, and it's not their property. So I think that I'd like to see them paved. I'd like to see alley pavement in all of Duncanville. But if that can't be done, I'd like to see it turned over as easily and quickly to the homeowners. So that one fee that we've done in the past, I think that makes sense in those two cases.
one of the things you have to understand, generally, because of earlier slide, the underlying fee belongs to the adjacent property owner. It's created out of your land or your predecessor land, be it by separate instrument, generally by plat. So when you own a piece of property in your city street, you own to the center of that street. That's you own the land. It's subject to the public's charge the right to drive over,
So the
a
city
right to pave it, but you own the fee.
So the city doesn't run fee simple for them?
No,
for that?
generally not.
So the
Generally
alleys-
not.
so
Now,
the
there are
alleys-
occasions when we do.
So the alleys are fee simple too?
Yes.
Or
No. They're usually public.
So
They
it
go back
doesn't-
to the plat,
Yeah.
and when the plat, it says all the streets and alleys on this plat as shown hereon are dedicated
Okay.
to the public use
Okay.
for streets, alleys. So all we have, unless sometimes we get subsurface rights in order to put utilities in. So assuming there's no utilities, when we abandon, because we don't need the street anymore, we don't need the alley anymore,
So we're just giving up the easement?
so the value of that surface right is what we have to be compensated for because it belongs to everybody here in the room. So we have to get fair market value for that right of way. The
We have
appraisal.
to get fair market value, that's what you're saying.
Right. Now, it could be cash, it could be other consideration. A lot of times when we redevelop property, we get something in exchange for giving up that right. But we have to put a value on that. That's why the appraisal, the Dallas County Appraisal District, whether you love them or hate them, puts a value on, so when you get your appraisal, you get it for your whole lot, subject to whatever rights of ways or easements are on your property. And it's usually valued a little, at one time it was like 10 cents a square foot. It's like 50 or $1 now a square foot for that public right of way. So if you have 50 square feet of public right of way on your lot, it's valued at 50 cents, and so they take that off the value of your raw land. So we use that value of many times so that it doesn't cost the property owner a bunch of money because
We're
it
saying
gets
that
expensive.
that is,
That would be a fair market value because the appraisal district is supposed to appraise
right,
that
but you're
property
saying that
right.
is what Dallas County is appraising it at, 50 cents a square foot.
Yeah, it's very low. It's
So
very low.
an independent appraisal would be higher, probably. Oh,
But aren't these real small pieces, so
Well-
it can't be a lot of dollars between the,
It could,
I mean,
well, if we were to
if
do
it's
a
just a
whole
small-
alley up there, it
But
wouldn't
I-
be a lot of dollars for each individual property owner
it's not
to
a lot.
pay, but it could be if you close the street, which, now, you saw Sliger up there, it was never developed. You can make an argument that it was never accepted. It's presumed to be accepted, and so unless the city has done something to maintain it, you can make an argument that it's never been accepted for the public use, and therefore there's no public right to it. Have we maintained it? Have we cut it? Have we put concrete on it or asphalt? Has it been utilized by a public entity like the garbage collection or public utilities to access? Because a lot of these things, I was talking to Jackie today, a lot of times we'll have a clean out for a sewer line. We've got some old sewer lines that probably be in places they shouldn't have been, that were done 70 years ago. But the only way we can get to that sewer line is down that alleyway. And so the only reason we have that unimproved area in the back of someone's lot is so we can get down there if we have to service that clean out. That's the only reason. So maybe we don't need 15 feet, but we need enough to get a vehicle down there to do the clean out. So we hear
Or
what
Bob.
you're saying.
Bob, we could abandon an alley or a street subject to a utility easement
Sure.
and leave that utility easement there for
Then it
access.
becomes a private utility.
But, yeah, I was thinking there was that option as well if we wanted to abandon, say, that one section of
Gets
Slider
trickier
Drive.
on the value because now you've got something still in the ground there, so that devalues that private right. But that's to our benefit
so
then. And ultimately the
each
property.
individual property would be different then.
Yes, ma'am.
So we can't do it as a one, really.
But what,
Well, you could do it as, well, I think you could still do it as a price per square foot, a consistent price per square foot. But the area might be different depending on the property, but your base level, your price per square foot is still consistent.
Now, I will say this, that if the appraisal district uses mass appraisal process, so they appraise the alley and the public rights of way the same for every property, probably in Dallas County, so it may be undervalued, because it's X in University Park, it's X here, it could be lower here just because the property that it's on. But
So it's not 50 cents.
well, that's what they used. If you went and got a appraiser, it would probably change because the property that's immediately adjacent to it will all be different. Yes, ma'am. Where when you use mass appraisal, they just say all public rights of way are 50 cents square foot.
Well, that's fine for me, 50 cents a square foot.
But I'm wondering if the rest of the council feels like I do, that we want to turn these over to the citizens, if that's what our policy that we want to push for. I mean, I'm all for it, to the extent that there's.
If we
not-
don't need it, then.
Yeah, where we don't need it, and if we're having to go in and mow it or something, and there's a benefit to getting rid of it, you know. And one of the things too, within the process of looking at abandoning something, we will evaluate it for whether there's a future need, whether there's an existing utility in the ground, or whether any of the other public utilities need to retain that for any reason. So all of that is part of the evaluation process to determining whether we would, you know, recommend it for abandonment. But yes, I agree that, you know, if there serves no purpose for the city, it doesn't make sense for us to keep it and hold on to it.
And what do you do if they don't want it?
Well, that gets to a good question too, especially like on an alley where.
Once we abandon
No,
it,
go
it's
ahead,
theirs.
Duncan.
Once we abandon it, it's theirs, so whether they want it or not.
Well,
But in that case,
now, the problem is, we wouldn't file the deed, or the quitclaim deed and or the ordinance to abandon that property if they didn't pay for it. So
Well,
it's-
and each side, each adjoining property owner is, you know, is qualified to get 50% of it. So sometimes I might want the whole thing, but my neighbor across
That's
the alley.
happened. That's happened here.
He said, I'm not gonna give up my share of this. So an alley's 15 feet wide, so I can't use 7.5 feet, and he won't give up his 7.5 feet.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
we've had
nice.
some in the older parts of town where that exact thing's happened, where property owner A and B, A doesn't want it, so B pays for the other A's portion, and they take the whole thing.
And then you can put a fence?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Because it's no longer blocking public access or our right to have access, so you could fence that entire lot. Some of these older ones, though, do provide drainage, because the way the alleys are cut.
Right.
And that's one of the things alleys do to perform, not only passage of vehicles, but provide drainage for the rear lots, the rear of the lot. But that's part of the evaluation process. Because if it's not given to us, then all these property owners are gonna have, because once you have, as you know, you're a lawyer, when you divert water from one lot to another, which is what drainage is, now there's liability. So, but that's part of the evaluation process.
So what I'm hearing from the council though is to keep it as simple as possible on this part of it, okay?
One price. In the old days, we used to divide it between right-of-way and easements. And we just cut it in half for an easement. If it was public right-of-way, it was $1. If it was an easement, it was 50 cents a square foot, whatever price we come up.
What our intent is to take your input today and put together a policy that we would bring back to you. So we'll look at those and then we can, you know, look at those costs, and if you want to change that or use a different number, you can when we bring it back for your all's consideration.
If you're gonna close Main Street, you wanna appraise that.
Yeah, it's these little 7.5 foot by 50 foot pieces. The property owner can't afford to get an appraisal, you know, generally.
Right, yeah.
So we
It's
just have a
cost
fee.
prohibitive, and then,
But we do charge the filing fee. The property owner pays the filing fee.
Okay, and we would like to proceed with that.
How much is a phone fee?
Well, $15.
yeah,
Oh.
first page.
Yeah.
So if the property description is a great big old long thing, you pay $15 first page and then $5 for everyone after. So it's not too much.
Okay, go to the next, see what else, other questions we have. Process for abandonment.
Yeah, the process for examining and approving abandonment of public right-of-way. One of the questions we have is if the council is interested in a two-step process, where the first council meeting, you would, consider the application or information provided and, make a preliminary determination that this is something that the city could possibly want to pursue. And then the second meeting, maybe you would conduct a public hearing if needed. If there were non-consenting property owners, you might want to, conduct a public hearing to hear their feedback, or you might not want to. And then, have final action on the abandonment request.
Well, what good would it do if you had a 15-foot right of way and one says no and one says yes, or one won't even answer? Why would you want to go through with the property, give it 7.5 foot to a property owner and then
Neither. Yeah, a typical example is a property owner builds a swimming pool and the deck extends out into a utility easement. And he did get a survey, the contractor just pushed the deck out on the pool, so it encroaches 2 or 3 feet. And then the only answer is to come to the city and get that abandoned. It ought to be a simple process. And all he's got to do is abandon, we would abandon if we didn't need it.
If we weren't using the.
Yeah, why would we want to abandon 7.5 foot and not do anything with the other 7.5 foot?
Well, you may have a pipe running out
Or usually, there might be a power line, a private utility,
there.
franchise utility might have.
There's 2 things that come into play. We have the ability to handle these different ways. That what Dennis has described, either abandon the right of way if it's an alley, or you can license it if you want to, because you may need access to it. But what happens with a lot of these things, they come up at the last minute. Someone's trying to sell their property, the closing's tomorrow, and now all of a sudden they find out that part of their lot is actually subject to an old city right-of-way. And so one of the things that I would be fearful of, we have too much process involved, we really hamstring ourselves. Now we've required one of our citizens to wait 45 days to send out a notice and have a hearing and have a council meeting. I mean, if we're going to close Main Street, that's a different thing.
If you evaluate the right-of-ways and the alleys, if you evaluate them, then you know which ones are, the simple form, and you know which ones are going to be a problem. And you can have 2 processes.
Okay. And so the more complicated one, maybe that would lend itself to the two-step.
Well, I don't know.
Well,
That's another question.
if, for example, you wanted to close the street, and I'll pick on old downtown area because it has a lot of issues that we see with these kinds of things. So if we wanted to close one of the streets for some reason because the developer wanted to come in and build a new building, that closing a street affects other people other than the people that live on it. So you may want to have more of a public input about whether you would want to close that street. Alleys, corner clips, decks, probably not. So if we're going to close a street of more than 50 feet or something like that, then we're affecting other people that use the street. You may want more input. Fair?
Yeah.
So that takes us back to previous question. Is the city willing to abandon a public right-of-way if all the abutting property owners are not interested in the abandonment? So
It could be that you just leave it open and it's available for them to do it, and they're educated about it, because we can't do it on every property overnight anyway, right?
Well,
So we can take a passive view to it.
Yeah.
Typically, we would probably only do this if someone requested, unless there is some property that we definitely know we want to get rid of. But otherwise, it's like what Jackie mentioned was, we have 3 that have come up that have been requested. So that's where, that's typically what happens, is when someone requests that. And so, thinking from what I was hearing you say too, Bob, is that like in an abandoning in an alley, once we determine we're going to abandon it, it's abandoned. Whether it all gets quit claimed or not, it depends on whether those abutting property owners accept it or not, right? But it's abandoned.
Yeah, it's got to belong to somebody.
Right, okay. So we'll, okay.
And so, once we, by ordinance, give up our access to it, by operation of law, it's yours. But our obligation is to get fair market value of it because it belongs to all of us. And so we all need to get our just compensation, if you will, from our standpoint, that we're not giving away public asset to the benefit of a private property. But, at the end of the day, it's less than $100 in a lot of cases, so it's not a lot of money.
So the answer was, as it comes up?
I think the answer is if it is evaluated to be acceptable to abandon it and we bring it to council, then your decision would probably be, we're going to abandon it. Whether all of them want it or not, but we will quit claim it and we will abandon that, and then by default it becomes theirs anyway.
It's created out
So-
of their lot.
So it's mine, even if I don't want it, it's still mine?
Remember,
Do I pay for it?
Hey,
does
Steve,
that-
let me give you, when you were a kid and,
Okay.
and you and one of the kids in the neighborhood you stepped onto your sidewalk, you'd say, well, this is my property, and go, no, my dad told me that it didn't belong to you, it belongs to all of us. Well, actually, the underlying fee belongs to you, but the public has the right to use the sidewalk and the green.
Okay.
But it is
No,
your
no, I
land.
understand that.
Right.
I understand that part.
It's,
But it goes back to the question, if I don't, so I can't not consent.
You can
As a
consent not to
property
pay
owner.
us. That's right.
It's like me bringing a quarter and putting it on your front porch and walking away. You can pick it up, you can just leave it there, but it's yours. I mean, it's your property. The city's just relinquishing any.
We have given up our
But it's-
but
right to
if you
use
want them
it.
to pay for it,
See,
But is the city getting paid for it?
right.
If I don't consent,
If they want it in.
you're
in
not
the-
paying for it. That's right.
But if they want it in their.
You're gonna add it to my tax appraisal.
Yeah, if they
Yep.
want it,
I
yeah.
am.
That's the
Yeah,
bonus.
you're gonna have to maintain that.
And you're gonna have to
Yeah.
maintain it, you'll get a ticket. if
You got more land now,
no, I understand that.
unless you
So the
didn't
city's
want
getting,
it.
we are getting paid, we're not giving it away for free.
So you cannot not consent. Use the double negative.
You cannot not consent?
Yeah, it's yours, whether you want it to be or not. Once we give up our right to it, it's
It's
yours.
just neater because it goes to be part of your deed or in the county.
So they don't have the right to not want it?
Correct. But see, here's the thing, it belonged to you in the first place when you bought
You
your
just didn't
lot.
know it?
You just didn't, it was just subject to our right to drive over it or dig a hole in the
Person on the
backyard.
other side will go ahead and buy it.
Right.
So it doesn't really.
Can I ask the council's indulgence? There's Mary Mesa is one of the ones that is requesting an alley abatement, and she would like to address the council.
Can you bring up the Hastings situation?
Under the Open Meetings Act, no, but once we adjourn the
I
work
just want to
session-
show
It's
you.
there.
There are properties built on the Hastings. In some cases, there are houses built on some of this that we're talking about abandoned. How they got titles to them, I don't know. But my family has owned the land since 1927, and behind it was nothing but a farm. And all that's showing as an alley goes to us, not to the people behind us,
Yeah.
because it wasn't
could be a-
developed
it
at
could
that
be-
time.
It could be a public or a private right-of-way that's matured into public right-of-way.
I don't know
because
where
we
it
put
came
a
on there,
pipe in
but
it.
it didn't. But what I'm telling you is, we've had a barn on it ever since I can remember, and I'm 65, and I know it's older than that. It was on there when they bought it in 1927, and it shows as in the alley now. there's other buildings that are on the alley too, and have been for years.
I'll blame it on the railroad.
So if someone
Somebody
has,
got off whack, there was a
so,
little
so if someone
survey.
has, so someone has a unique situation, like Ms. Mesa, in that she believes that she owns the easement all the way to her neighbor's fence, it's not split, how does that get resolved?
We have to actually figure out whether it's ours or not. Why can't?
And we've kept it fenced all these years. It's
So
never-
it right now is in your fence?
Yes, it always has been
Then
fenced.
that's, in that,
Well, we can't, the statute of limitations doesn't run against the municipality, so it would, if it was created correctly by some plat that was filed in the county, which, it's like our old downtown, that's a platted nightmare, but we can figure out, we may not even own it.
But if we abandon it, I mean, then it's.
It's easier to do that, just to
Yeah.
abandon it, than that way a title company, because a lot of times title company can't find how it got created either.
so
So
you're
it's-
saying, so in that case, you just keep it and there wouldn't be a discussion?
Well, we would actually pass an ordinance abandoning that portion.
Make it official
Make
by
it-
abandonment. And it's-
Yeah, well, I mean, you abandon it, but I mean, she wouldn't have to share it with her neighbors.
No, and we could figure out that, we could put a recital in the ordinance that they've had some, have it fenced for X number of
Fenced,
years,
yeah.
and it is valueless. Because there is no, we can't even find it, we even accepted it, so it's like a quick claim deed. If we have an interest, we're giving it to her.
If we have it.
If we
If
ever
we have an
wanted
interest, we're
it.
gonna give it.
If we ever wanted
If it's back order, you can have it.
Bob, to clarify maybe Steve's question, or add to Steve's question, in my experience, if you go back to like the Slider track, there's 8 adjacent property owners. One property owner is in favor of it, the other 7 are not, and that input is provided to the council. The council can always decide not to abandon that alley because one property owner wants it, but the other 7 don't. That's always a council decision that can be made. They don't, just because a request has been made, doesn't mean it has to be abandoned. And
If
so,
it's ever been accepted.
yes.
Yeah, that's on the Slider one, that's a
Okay.
good question, we don't know.
Thank you.
So,
Very
So
clear.
it's like-
stay tuned, Johnny, they'll bring you the ordinance.
That was it, that was it?
Yeah,
All right.
that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Albert.
We've still got a little time, and I want to introduce, well, maybe I ought to go ahead and close this meeting, and then we can introduce our provider of food tonight. So it's now 6:49, 6:44. And so we will recess. We will call the city council meeting to order. Our first order of business tonight will be our invocation given by Pastor Ron Carlson from the Duncanville Church of Christ, Grace Place. Following that, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. So at this time, will you please stand?
Good evening. Please pray with me. Father, we count it a privilege to come to you in prayer, to gather in this public place, free people who are children of liberty, religious liberty, spiritual liberty, and liberty that comes to us in the Republic. And we're grateful for all of it. And we know it comes from you. And so we're humbled by it, and we come with hearts of gratitude. Lord, we pray for our fair city. We take the injunction to pray for those in leadership seriously. I ask tonight on behalf of the folks that are gathered here that you give great spiritual wisdom to the folks who govern our city. Help them, Father, to work together amicably and peaceably for the welfare of the community. Help us as citizens to respect the order and the law, and help us to participate in ways that are beneficial and build up rather than tear down our community. I'm grateful to live in Duncanville, to be part of this great inclusive city. And Father, like so many, I look forward to good days ahead, days of growth and prosperity, days of peace and harmony, days that, Father, are bright and cheery for us. We are, however, prepared to weather storms, and we do that with your strength. Well, we will try to walk this life out in faith, recognizing that there's more to life than what we see. So, Lord, bless the people that make up Duncanville. And, Father, may we always be a bright, shining light. And as we pastors always pray here together, that this will be a place where people can find you and worship you and live in harmony with you and with your people. God bless this meeting tonight. We pray, Father, for goodness in the name of the one who is good, and amen.
Amen. I pledge the allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge the allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Mayor and Council, I would like to comment to the public and let the citizens know what we're doing right now on the brush pickup. As people know, we have gotten, or Republic has gotten well behind in brush pickup. Normally, they are on a cycle to pick up the entire city about every 2 weeks. The city is divided up into 10 different sections, and as I said, normally, under normal conditions, they're picking up brush about every 2 weeks, cycling through the city. Right now, they've gotten so far behind. Spring is typically a heavy time period because people are trimming trees, cutting down trees. The brush piles up. So normally they get behind a little bit in the springtime, but we've also had some high wind events about a month ago and then again this weekend. So right now, it's taking them about a week to do one section at a time. So what we've done is we've worked with Republic. Last week, we've added another brush truck. We've also working with them to allowing them to use the city property at the corner of Danieldale and Santa Fe for them to dump the brush piles. That saves them the time of taking all of the brush, each load, to their landfill south of town. So that turns that truck around quicker. Then once we're caught up, which will probably be several weeks, though I want to make sure that people understand it's going to take a number of weeks to get caught up, several weeks, but we're continuing to work with them to try to increase the pickup, increase the turnaround time. But once that's done, then we will take all that brush and have it chipped and hauled off. But so we're trying to work with them to keep that moving and trying to catch up, but I just wanted to let everyone know what we are doing and be patient with us. Thank you.
We have several, under item number 2, we have several proclamations and presentations tonight, and they're A through F, and I have asked several of our council to participate in doing this, so I would ask them, if looking at your agenda, would you please come down at the appropriate time. The first one will be Patrick Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Good evening to all of you. Thank you for attending. I have the distinct pleasure of presenting to you some excellent students from Duncanville High School, and their excellence is recognized by the fact that in the recent Dallas Morning News 28th Annual High School Journalism Day and competition, they were recognized. They are here this evening. Their names are Alexis Rosebrock, Ruth Thunderhawk, Brenda Arana, along with their teacher, Mr. James Rich. So I would like for them to come up at this time, and I will turn over the microphone to Mr. Rich so that he can speak highly of them. Come on up. Come on, come on, come on. Mr. Rich?
He didn't tell me I had to speak. it's exciting to have students who are recognized in a contest like this. What they do in this contest, just so everybody can understand and know what happens, is they take all the photojournalists, journalists from the entire North Texas region, and they're able to enter a contest at the Dallas Morning News. It's a free contest that all the high schools can enter, and there's hundreds of entries. And so out of the 4 categories that they had in photography, Duncanville High School won all 4 categories. Not only did we win all 4 categories, but we also had Alexis Rosebrock was selected as the top visual journalist for the entire North Texas region, which means that her photos were put in with everybody's photos. They judged those and they picked one person who stood out above everybody. So we had several entries in that contest, and so these 3 stood out above all the rest of them. We also had several other students who were 2nd and 3rd place behind these guys, so we pretty much took everything in that contest. So we're real excited for these girls. 2 of them are graduating this year, both of them. One's going to North Texas. The other one's also going to community college and then transferring to North Texas, hopefully, to study communications and do this in their future. So we're really excited that they are going to pursue that and continue using that in their future. So these guys are phenomenal, and I'm going to miss the seniors, but I get one more year with Brenda, so we'll give her one more shot next year.
We have our Keep Duncanville Beautiful chairwoman, Bobby Pepperhill, and we have Michelle Drake and Kathleen Higgins from the Redbird, Redbird Village. Whereas the city of Duncanville is committed to improving the physical quality of community life, and whereas the Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board was established to promote this commitment, and whereas the mission of the Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board is to empower Duncanville citizens and businesses to take responsibility for enhancing their community environment, and whereas each quarter the Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board recognizes one commercial property within the city for significant improvements to the exterior portion of the property, landscape improvements, and/or long-term maintenance of the property that exemplifies high-quality standards. And whereas Redbird Village Apartments located at 803 Leaf Drive has been selected as the Business Beautification Award recipient for May 2017, now, therefore, I, David L. Green, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, Texas, do hereby urge all residents to join me in congratulating the Redbird Village Apartments located at 803 Link Drive and commending this business for contributing to the beautification of our city. Thank you.
We really appreciate, we do put a lot of hard work. This is, okay, yes, this is to us like our home, just like we like to make our home just as nice to all of our residents.
We do, 164 families we take care of, and it's not just us, we have a team of people that make it all possible. But yes, this is my right-hand girl right here. We're the ladies in the office that manage Redbird Village, and we love it, we love our job, and we love Duncanville, and we're happy to contribute to making it
Very
more
much so.
beautiful, so thank
Very
you.
much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have Daniel Flores, who's responsible for nominating these businesses and driving around to check that out, along with our KDB chairlady, Bobby Cutler-Hill. Bobby Cutler-Hill. Wow. Erased. But thank you all for recognizing such an outstanding and what you all do in the community. So we have a proclamation here too. Thank you.
Whereas today's society is finding more citizens involved in motorcycling on the roads of our country, and whereas motorcyclists are roughly unprotected and therefore more prone to injury or death in a crash than any other vehicle drives, and whereas campaigns have helped inform riders and motorists alike on safety issues to reduce motorcycle-related risks, injuries, and most of all, fatalities through a comprehensive approach to motorcycle safety. And whereas it is the responsibility of all who put themselves behind the wheel to become aware of motorcyclists, regarding them with the same respect as any other vehicle traveling the highways of this country. And it is the responsibility of riders and motorists alike to obey all traffic laws and safety rules. And whereas we urge all citizens of our community to become aware of the inherent danger involved in operating a motorcycle, and for riders and motorists alike to give each other the mutual respect they deserve. Now therefore, David L. Green, the mayor of the city of Duncanville, does hereby proclaim the month of May 2017 as Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month in the city of Duncanville.
I need the blue down here. I'm honored to do a proclamation for the National Police Week. Before I read the proclamation, I'd like to let y'all know that May 15th, Monday morning at 10 a.m., in front of the police office, they'll have a memorial for our fallen officers to remember them. Officer Sergeant Michael Poe and Officer Roger Hobbin. So with that, whereas the Congress and the President of the United States have designated May 15, 2017 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as the National Police Week, and whereas the members of law enforcement agency of the city of Duncanville play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Duncanville, and whereas it's important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against the deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the law enforcement agency of the city of Duncanville unceasingly provide a vital public service, now therefore, David L. Green, Mayor of the city of Duncanville, Texas, do hereby call upon all citizens of Duncanville and upon all the patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 14th through the 20th, 2017 as National Police Week. This is Doug Siskis, or the Police Public Information Officer, am I right?
Yes, like they said, at 10 o'clock Monday, May 15th, in front of the police station, we'll have a short memorial that will start at 10 and usually take about 20 minutes. So everybody in the city is more than welcome to come and help us pay our respects to the two fallen officers.
Mayor and Council, thank you very much for this proclamation. This event is very important to the police department. We do not ever want to forget the ultimate sacrifice that those two officers made for our city. We also invite their families back, and we want them to know that we greatly appreciate the sacrifice that those two officers made. So please, ladies and gentlemen, join us on Monday, May the 15th at 10 a.m. to help us remember those fallen officers. Thank you very much.
management team from the Public Works Department. Very appropriate. As many of you know, Mike Hassler, to my immediate right, is Public Works Director, and he is retiring at the end of this month. And so I want to say publicly that we really appreciate what you've done for the city, you and your staff, and just we're looking forward to great things happening, not because you're leaving, but because of the work that the foundation that you've laid established. Mike was recently recognized as having served, or having 40 years in the American Public Works Association, so that's an accomplishment as well. So now I'm going to read the proclamation for Public Works Week. Whereas Public Works infrastructure, facilities, and services are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives and of vital importance to sustainable communities and the health, safety, and well-being of the people of Duncanville, and whereas such facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees from your local public works department who are responsible for and who plan, design, build, operate, and maintain the transportation, water supply, water treatment, public buildings, structures, and facilities, and who deliver solid waste services, transit, fleet services, which are essential to serve our citizens, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff our Public Works Department is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform, and whereas the men and women of the Public Works Department of the City of Duncanville unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now, therefore, David Green, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, does hereby call upon all citizens of Duncanville and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 21 through 27, 2017 as National Public Works Week in the City of Duncanville. With that, I'll present that proclamation to you. Sir. And luckily, I have another proclamation. And this is an area of public works. We're going to talk about our water. Whereas water is our most valuable natural resource, and whereas only tap water delivers public health protection, fire protection, support for our economy, and the quality of life we enjoy, and whereas any measure of successful society, low mortality rates, economic growth, and diversity, productivity, and public safety are in some way related to access to safe water, and we are all stewards of the water infrastructure upon which future generations depend. And whereas each citizen of our city is called upon to help protect our source waters from pollution, to practice water conservation, and to get involved in local water issues by getting to know their water. Therefore, David Green, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, does hereby call upon all citizens of Duncanville and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 7 through 13, 2017 as Drinking Water Week in the City of Duncanville.
Councilmember Schwartz, thank you so much. Mayor and Council, I want to thank you for, I guess, the final step in my career. As Dennis mentioned, I am retiring at the end of this month. I do kind of flinch when I hear that first because I feel like I'm leaving the family of Duncanville, not the city of Duncanville. And this has been an incredible experience. I've worked with some really talented and tremendous people, and I've got to make a lot of friends here. So I wanted to say that first and just tell everyone that I appreciate all the help and the support, particularly the three individuals to my right and your left. John Bunner is our civil engineer. If you ask John, he's probably the most overworked employee that we have. But we have Jackie Colton. Jackie is my assistant director of Public Works and soon to be probably the interim director. And we have Donald McKinney, who's the operations manager, and he is over our water and wastewater operations. And if you ever have any complaints, his home phone number is... Obviously, I'm kidding there, but Donald is over our water and wastewater operations, which is a very challenging division. We're called out at all hours of the day and night. There's just so many challenges that we all face, and I appreciate the work of these individuals and the employees that support them. And so on behalf of the Department of Public Works, again, I thank you for both proclamations and the recognition. Thank you so much.
Item number 3 is the citizens' input, and I only have one card tonight, but I would remind everybody that we do not televise the input period during election season. This will be our we'll read the captions on those.
Item 4A, consider the minutes for the April 18, 2017 regular City Council meeting. 4B, consider a resolution to award a contract for IFB 17-13 San Juan Drive, Madrid Drive Alley, reconstruction to Construction Companies Group, LLC, in the amount of $243,525. 4C, consider a resolution to award a contract for the FY 2016 Community Development Block Grant Project, IFB number 17-45, wastewater improvements, Pebble Drive easement from Steger Drive to Hill City Drive to King Solution Services, LLC, in the amount of $105,300.
Council, you've heard the captions read. There are 3 items. Will you please vote? Oh,
Move to approve.
We need
Second.
motion to approve. And a second. Now, will you please vote? Thank you very much. Item number 5 are items for individual consideration, and 5A is to consider a resolution appointing members to the Duncanville Sister City Commission. We, at our last session, mapped out the number of folks that we'll have on this. There are 7 in number, and City Council was asked to bring in names that they would like tonight to be considered, and we will have 7 spots open. So we will consider those names after they're placed in nomination and then vote on 7 of them. So the floor is open.
Mayor, I'd like to nominate Kay Cam.
Okay, the name Kay Cam has been.
We'll nominate Glenn Rep.
Glenn Rep? Okay,
Can we nominate 2 people?
sure.
Okay. I'd like to nominate Dr. Fred Soroki and Sandy Soroki, his wife.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Jameson?
I'd like to nominate Julie Norris, Norris.
Julie Norris? Anybody else? How many do we have? Go ahead, Dennis. Go ahead.
How many?
You've done 5 right now.
Okay,
You have 2 more.
all right,
David Green.
okay. That's 6.
I would like to know if Patrick Harvey is available.
Sure.
I'd like to nominate Patrick Harvey.
Okay, that's 7. Are there any more? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to nominate as a slate for the Sister City Committee, Kay Cam, Glenn Rep, Dr. and Sandy Shrokey, Julie Norris, David Green, Patrick Harvey.
Okay, that's 7. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Any further discussion? Will you please vote? Okay, thank you very much. Item number 5B is to take any action necessary as a result of the executive session, and the executive session was not held tonight, so that is a moot question. Item number 6 is staff and board reports, and the first one is item number A, and to receive Economic Development Department quarterly report and work plan update.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. I'm excited. My name is Jessica James. I'm the Director of Economic Development. I'm excited tonight to present to you the EDC quarterly report. As you know, I always like to bring to Council a list of our major employers. Over the last quarter, we haven't seen a tremendous fluctuation in terms of number of jobs, but you will see that we've added a couple to the list, and ones have moved around a little bit, but there hasn't been a real change. We've obviously had new businesses. You see the weekly report, so we've had a number of small new businesses that come into the community, but these still tend to be our major employers at this time. In terms of the sales tax collection by industry segment, the only real change that we've seen is the utilities did drop 1%, and then there was an increase by the other segments. And that could be very much attributed to, in terms of the utilities, in terms of a mild winter. So, moving on to the work plan items, 2.20 is create a business outreach program, and the status is ongoing. As you all know, we did create the business retention and expansion program last year, but we are looking forward to working with the new director of library when that individual comes on board, and continuing to partner to see what other services that we can offer them working together over there with the library. In terms of objective 2.21, create a tourism program, that is ongoing. As I reported last time to the council, the new and first CVB website is up, and really the next step is to find out whether the council would like to create a CVB program and really move in that direction. Objective 2.22 is to create the Camp Wisdom / Industrial Area TIF, and the status is ongoing, as you all know. The TIF board has met 2 times in the last quarter. The first meeting, the board elected Michael Grace as president, and then this last meeting that we had, the board actually took a driving tour of the TIF area, and the staff explained the needs to the needs in the area, and then the board was able to assess those needs on an individual basis. The action items left for the completion of the TIF will be to finalize a project plan and the finance plan. Our next meeting is June 27th at 6 p.m. That'll take place here at City Hall. And at that time, we will be working to finalize both of those plans. Of course, once the board votes on those, they will come back to council for consideration and final approval. Continuing on, objective 2.27 is to redesign and update the economic development marketing materials, and this will always be ongoing. As you all know, this is something I've stated previously, is that we do customize each pitch deck depending on the industry and the individual company that we are trying to recruit. Objective 2.28, develop a marketing plan to brand Duncanville as a city of champions, including a national sports brand sponsorship, and it's ongoing. As I said last time, we have identified 3 different firms. 2 firms have submitted proposals. We're waiting on a 3rd proposal. Oh, yes, ma'am?
The logo, or is this going to be our logo?
This is the current logo right now.
It's a current one, but didn't we vote to have a new logo developed?
You did, yes, ma'am, and that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are not the new logos?
They're not. These are copies of the old one, or the existing one that we currently use. Yes, ma'am. And so what we will do is staff will assess those proposals, and then we'll bring that back to council at a later date in terms of the next steps that will take place. Obviously, one of the big things will be to gain council's input as well as public's input in terms of what direction that they would like to go. First will be to design or create. Next will be in terms of marketing and really branding that. So you'll be seeing that. That's anywhere between an 8 and 12-month process because we do want to make sure and have citizen input. In terms of engagement from our existing businesses as well as developers and new businesses and also property owners and property managers, year to date for 2017, we've met with 20 existing businesses. In terms of developers and new business prospects, 14, and then property owners and managers, 10. And you can see that compared with 2016 and 15. Other activities that the board's been involved with in the last quarter is that they did attend the Flavor of Duncanville, and you can see we had a booth up there. And basically what we did was we provided the attendees information about the TIF area, as well as we had a little survey to try to find out what they would like to see more of in Duncanville. And of course, the number one thing is more restaurants, so that's something that we continue to work on. In addition, the board did present Natasha Fain with Salon 921, that's located in the Tom Thumb Shopping Center, with a signed grant for just over $1,800. And if you haven't had a chance, this was something that came to council not too long ago. If you haven't had a chance to stop by, it's a really cute shop, and she's done a great job. Moving on to other additional activities. I don't want to read through all of them. Obviously, you all can read, but just to highlight a few. Obviously, the staff and the DCEDC board, along with many of the council members, attended the Best Southwest Regional Economic Development Red Summit. And the EDC recognized Barclay Construction, Good Life Living Center, and Kroger for their investment into the community, along with, obviously, the mayor. The staff does continue to work with the Public Works on I-20 and Highway 67 projects. And during the quarter, the board actually approved 2 different grants. One was for 10 Hagen Excavating Incorporated, and that's for a fence. That will come to you in the future for final approval from City Council. That grant was just over $46,000. And then, I'm sorry, not $46,000. That one was just over $48,000. I apologize. And then also the board, as well as City Council, approved an indoor sprinkler system for GK Steel Fabrication, and that was just over $76,000. So you can see that the board's been very active and busy over the last quarter. With that, I'll answer any questions that you might have. No, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6B is to receive the monthly financial report as of March 31, 2017.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before I get into the financial report, I wanted to talk just a minute about fund balance. I know that you all know what fund balance is, and I wanted to do this for the benefit of the public. The GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, has a recommended 60-day fund balance in most of your general fund and other major funds. And here, our city manager has opted to target more like a 75-day fund balance. And as was demonstrated with a catastrophic event like what happened this weekend in Canton, where a tornado did severe damage. This is the reason that we keep these fund balances, so that we're prepared as a city anytime we face something that's unusual, and we have those funds available to be used for the cleanup and anything else that comes along with a catastrophic event. So I just wanted to say that those fund balances are important to keep. So moving right into the financial report, as of the end of March, we expect our revenues, since we're at mid-year at this point, to be about 50%, both on revenue side and on the expenditure side. And where some of the highlights, our general fund balance stands at about 13.1 million, and that's about 167 days of operations. And of course, that's due to the fact that we collect our property taxes up front, and we'll be spending that money down as we go throughout the year. Our property tax payments are about 97% of the budget, and again, that's not unusual because they do get paid at the beginning of the fiscal year. And our sales tax revenue is probably the biggest highlight. We're running about 11% higher than the same time last year. And so overall, our general fund expenditures are about 48%, so they're just below that 50% benchmark, so we're in good shape. As we looked at this on the graph, purple line is if our revenues were earned evenly throughout the year, so that's a straight line that goes up. And then the blue line that you see there is a 3-year average of actual revenues coming in. And then the red line that's plotted up is the actual year-to-date. And then the green line projects out to what we target to end the year with. And as you can see, we're running above the 3-year average. And then if we laser out the property taxes, again, I just mentioned those come in primarily in the months of December, January, and February. And so you see that huge spike up, and then everything pretty much tapers off. As we've noted just previously, we've already collected 97% of our budget, so we've only got that 3% left to collect over the remainder of the second half of the year. And then we look at our sales tax. Again, I noted that we're running about 11% above where we were last year. And we've been trying to figure out how to get this graph where it's a little bit easier to see. The lines kind of fall on top of each other. And we continue to work on that, and it's a little bit better than it was last month, but we got some more work to do on it. Essentially, again, same as the others, and you can see that the red line's trending a little bit above that 3-year average and a little bit above where we actually projected for this year. Now we look at our expenditures. You see that they pretty well mirror that straight line, and starting to trend down just a little bit below that. If we look at our utility fund, which is our other major fund, our unreserved fund balance is $4.8 million. That's 104 days of operations. And our available fund balance in excess of that 60-day reserve is $2.1 million. And of course, some of that was due to the water and sewer rate increases that we had. I'd also like to mention, put a plug in there for that we've had people trying to understand what's going on with their April water bills. And during April is the month that we roll out our new winter averaging. So we collect data on usage for the months of December, January, and February. And those are for the actual uses during that. And so those bills don't actually go out to a month in arrears. So in April's when those new winter averages actually roll out. And so people may see changes in their bill due to that new winter averaging. Again, if you look at this same ideology on the graph, you see that our revenues started out the year a little bit below. That's not unusual because of water sales, and they're always less in the winter months. And then we're trending closer and closer each month to where we project. Our expenditures here also are trending well below the straight line average. And then those items here on the Innovation Fund summary that are in yellow are completed or essentially completed, and those other projects that are there we're still working on. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Councilman Harvey?
Thank you, Mayor. Richard, So when the council approves different water and sewer rates, they go into effect right after the fiscal year comes in, correct?
That would be correct. They would go into effect October 1, but because of our billing being in arrears, people won't really see that until November in terms of their rate increase.
So let's say, for example, well, what happens, I guess, and help me if I don't get this correct. So the winter averaging then pretty much affects the bills that are mailed out to the customers going forward, right?
Well, the increase in the rates would have some impact on them when we get into November, but because they're on their old prior year winter averaging, that impact may not be very much. And this year it wasn't too very much. But then if they made a significant change in their water use for those winter months, then when that new bill rolls out with that new winter average included in it in April, that goes from April of this year all the way around to next April. And that could have an impact.
And that is my point. That's my point. So the new rates do kick in, but they're based on that winter average. And then when the winter average comes up again 4, 5, 6 months into the fiscal year, and let's say the new winter average then is higher than the old winter average, then it almost looks like the bill's going up twice in one fiscal year.
That is correct, when in fact the rates have only gone up the one time, but now we've got a new winter average.
And the reason why we do the winter averaging is because not doing it in terms of the customers probably would pay more over an annual time period if the billing was based on the actual uses versus the winter averaging. The winter averaging has a tendency to, on your average customer's bill, has a tendency to lower over a period of time the amount that they're paying.
That is correct. The assumption is that during the winter months, there will be little or no irrigation going on at a person's home. And so we take that usage, feeling that that's a more accurate measurement of what's actually going into our sewer system to be treated.
So the message then that one could take away from this is that, just as you mentioned, December, January, and February is the time to really closely monitor your water usage so that you can get ahead of the curve in terms of the whole winter averaging thing.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Rutherford.
Richard, I think we're all pleased to see that the sales tax are up 11% from last year. Is there any specific reason that we know of, or maybe why they're up?
Well, again, as we look at the analysis, there's the economy overall is doing somewhat better, but we're also seeing that the building is being very strong here in the Metroplex, and so a lot of our large taxpayers are still tied into the building industry, and so that is contributing significantly to that.
That winter averaging is important. I heard one councilman say the other day that he takes a vacation in December so that he can keep it low.
Yeah, he probably could be a consultant for.
Are there any more questions?
Yeah, the months were November, December, January?
Actual usage.
Actual usage.
But those bills come out 1 month in arrears, so 1 month down the road. That's why you have that gap between because the March billing is actually for February usage.
Right.
And then, and by the time April bills roll out, we've got that new winter average calculated.
Quit using your swimming pool, David.
Do it.
Your swimming pool.
I don't put water in it during the, I pray for rain. Okay, this was the last item on our agenda tonight, so it is now 7:59 and we stand adjourned.